Hello, everybody. Welcome to Rage and Love, where we passionately and sometimes very calmly debate, explore, and review topics about religion, science, history, and current events. And today we are locked and loaded and ready to talk about guns and weapons. And we have a guest who is an atheist, okay? But he's very passionate about weapons and he's not afraid to pull the trigger on some topics, about gun culture in the US versus in the UK, personal freedom versus public safety. And we are going to be asking ourselves, what does it mean to arm yourselves in a world that is already armed to the teeth? So, welcome, EJ. How are you doing
Hello
today?
there. Wonderful. I loved the intro song. That was amazing. I
Thank you. I've learned from the best, yeah, objectively, then.
evidently. Oh, I can't wait to get started today. This is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have a good time having these discussions. Um, so firstly, we have some hellos. Hey, yay! Some people watching. Um, so you and I met through the ACA, but I always like to ask our guests where people can, find them and follow their other type of content. So, is there anywhere else that we can find you other than the nonprofits?
Yeah. I go by the ejector seat on just about everything, including YouTube. It's a bit barren for now, but I'm hoping to change that once I relocate to the sunny United States. Uh, but you
Oh,
can you can find me on just about any platform by that handle. It's one that's luckily not taken almost anywhere.
oh yeah, awesome. I just put it in the chat for the YouTube link. Okay, so before the show, my fellow co-host Joey was having some trouble with his sound, so we had to kick him out. But it looks like the gods have blessed us. All right, we've been blessed with sound, and Joe is back.
I
Hey,
don't know
Joe.
what was going on. I hope it's working now.
Hello.
Yay. Okay, yeah, we can hear you now. So that's good. That's good. Welcome back
Thank you,
to
thank you.
Wunderbar.
the world.
It was a technical issue with my browser, I assume. I switched browsers and now everything magically works.
Oh wow, magic, a miracle.
Yeah,
Not
It
a
was
change of
Jesus.
browsers, a miracle.
somebody must have been praying for it to work for me so I could come on the show.
Right, exactly. The prayers work.
Well, hey, the ejector, EJ, is it EJ?
Yeah.
Good to meet
Yeah,
you.
so EJ for
Good to
short.
meet you too.
He's, yeah, so we were just mentioning that we met through the ACA, the non-profits show. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm gonna put the uh, link in the chat for people if they want to follow. So I know that you and I are probably not going to be on the nonprofits for like the next block of
Yeah,
month
for
or
about
so.
I'm
Um,
probably not going to be back on for about 2 months while I'm getting relocated, getting a new PC and set up and stuff.
that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, but it's been fun, right? Like how long did you do the nonprofits for so far up till
So
now?
non-profits I have done since about the start of the year, I believe.
Oh, okay. So,
However,
oh yeah.
I was on Truth Wanted before that with Kelly Loughlin.
Okay,
Nice.
yeah.
Okay.
I think yeah, because I came on Truth Wanted like a year ago, and then I started modding with them, and you came on like when I had just started modding, so you were like right after me. That's cool.
It was the show directly after the election results were announced. So about
Oh,
30 minutes of that episode had to be cut because I went on a rant that I wasn't supposed to, and they still let me back on.
No
oh, wow.
politics.
Shocker! Nah, no, you're pretty good. I mean, you have some really good points, and like, I like that you bring a different perspective from an international point of view, because the nonprofits is all about like covering news, and we often cover mostly American news, but it's good to see how people see America from outside. Because over here it's all about America first, right?
Yeah, we live in a bubble where
Yeah, I'm moving there, and I still think it's a fiery hellhole. Uh,
It is. It is. You're coming right into it. I don't know why you would punish yourself like that.
I'm a bit of a
But
masochist.
sounds fun. Sounds fun. So yeah. So I think you know it can be a little bit easier for men, young white
Mm.
men.
I
But
look
I
fascist enough; they'll probably accept me.
You
Uh,
right. But that would probably be until they find out that you're queer, and then they'll be like, "Oh, never mind."
to straight people, I seem very queer, and to queer people, I seem very straight. I'm this odd in between. Maybe it's because I'm bi. I don't know, but but no one ever pegs me as what I actually am.
That's true. Yeah, like before you mentioned that, I was like, "Oh, okay." I always figured like he was just a regular straight guy.
Helen did the same on a non-profit show. She went, "We have 3 queer panelists." I was typing in the side chat. No, we have 4.
hey.
That's funny. That's cool. And it's perfect because it's Pride Month. So happy Pride Month,
Yeah, it
everybody.
is. Happy
Yay!
Pride Month.
Yeah, I mean everybody's welcome here. So yeah, I have been trying to like schedule more guests who are queer for this month to like celebrate the diversity. You're a DEI hire. I'm sorry, Jay.
That's okay.
DIR.
That's all I've been my entire life.
That-
Uh,
That's funny.
Oh gosh.
I work in
So,
DEI. I work as DEI in multiple ways. I can be queer for the straights and straights for the queers. Works amazingly.
that's perfect. Like it's good because then you can like just fit in wherever you want, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So okay. Before we get started, Joe, you have anything to add? Like what have you been up to? You've been up to anything? You've been just covering your news stuff, right?
Yeah, I've been really busy with my other social media stuff. Yeah, I run a news site and I do social media with that. So yeah, I've been real busy with that. I think the last show I was on here with you was like 3 weeks ago, maybe.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, other than that, but it's good to be back. So well, I'm looking forward to our conversations today. See what we get into, see where it leads. It's always fun. Ooh.
Yeah, it should be interesting. We're gonna cover a lot of topics that you are actually interested in, like guns and war and weapons.
Ooh.
But before we do that, there's another thing that I always ask our guests because obviously the majority of my content is kind of debunking religion and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
where do you stand on that? Like, how did you grow up? Did you grow up in religion, and how did you come out of it?
So I grew up a very vehement Catholic and quite the little shit, if I may. Uh, was not the nicest person, and at about 14, I started to fully realize doubts and stuff that I'd had for years, and I started to look into it. And I was praying, and I was saying, "Jesus, guide me." He did to being an atheist, so and that's where I
Huh.
still am. I did have a bit of an exploration with paganism and Islam. Weirdly,
Interesting.
it was a weird year. I, however, I eventually just settled on atheism, and it's now. While I don't think that I am unchangeable, I do think it's one of the positions that I am pretty solid on.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to put it, right?
Hmm.
Because I feel like when we stop believing, we realize that there are like all of these other 18,000 God claims, and we
Hmm.
even when we believed, we did not believe in any of those.
Hmm.
Why this is the reason for that? Because we didn't have any kind of evidence to believe in it, right? And so you're like, whoa, okay. Well, I never looked at my God with those goggles, right? Like I never thought, oh, hey,
Hmm.
uh, do I really truly have any evidence that this God believes other than just the Bible? So Yeah, I think it's a pretty solid um conclusion to come to, right? To be like, okay, yeah, no, fair enough. I
I am
don't
unconvinced until
currently have.
someone convinces me.
Right. So if you can convince us again that the God that we stopped believing in is real, or that there is evidence for it, then sure, we might be able to. You might be able to change our minds. But until then, we can remain pretty solid in the fact that we don't see enough of it.
Oh, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed
Yeah.
so hard.
Okay. So I'm glad that you're out of that and found yourself over here on this other side.
If I
And
didn't, I wouldn't be able to work
soon.
with you these days. So
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good point, right? I mean, I do hope to have maybe some theists come on the show. I was just today looking at one that was on Truth Wanted, and he is an evangelist, which is like one of the more
mm,
hardcore religions over here. But his channel was kind of more progressive, kind of like a progressive evangelist, if there is such a thing. And so when he was on Truth Wanted, everybody was really surprised by by how progressive he was,
mm.
and how he didn't seem
As a host.
super. No, he was a guest. He was a guest
Oh,
on
okay.
Truth Wanted with Dan, with Objectively Dan.
But he was a guest host, or he called in
No, he was a guest like on screen.
like host.
Oh,
We watched it together. Yeah, it was a while back though.
Yeah, I thought I remember
Um,
that. Okay.
that's
so
odd. Although I'm glad the ACA is open to taking on theists as on-screen guest hosts. That is actually
yeah,
quite
it,
comforting.
the reason they brought him on is because he's very much against Christian nationalism, and so
Oh,
it was good to have that to show people like, hey, even if you identify as a Christian, and are more progressive, and you're still fighting against Christian nationalism, then this is something where we're both on the same page.
hmm.
And so
I'm
this
sure
was
we'll touch
several
on that
months
later.
ago. Oh
Oh,
yeah,
for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, for sure. So, but it was like I could tell that in the future he might deconvert or something. And so a video just popped up today by him, and I went to watch it, and then the title was something about mental health and deconstructing from faith. So I was like, okay, all right, cool,
Maybe
cool,
maybe
cool.
he's already on the way.
Yeah, so I reached out to him, and I'm gonna see if he might come on the show. Because
That'd be
like I've
wonderful.
said, it's like you don't necessarily like deconverting is a really slow process. It's not something that most people do overnight. So
Stressful
because
too.
yeah, yeah. So I'm excited about that. Um, but yeah, speaking of, like we were talking about the differences earlier about how guns are perceived. And
Hmm.
here in the United States, we are so used to guns being seen as this thing that everybody has to have, and they're pretty much everywhere. But I know that this is not the case in many other places in the world. Like, in fact, if I had to guess, I would say that the U.S. has a pretty unique obsession with guns. Okay, so from your perspective, so for or people that are watching, EJ lives in Scotland currently in the
Yep.
UK. So, but he's moving to the United States. So I
Hmm.
wanted to discuss with you, like, to see if you are aware of the vast differences of how people perceive guns. Like, how is
So,
that in the UK? Like from your side?
so gun wise, I am a bit of a oddball in the UK. So there are two categories of people who own or use firearm. Three categories of people who use or own firearms in the UK. There are people who use them for work. So this is the MOD police, the armed police, the military, and very special diplomatic private security teams. All in all, if you are in Britain and working with a firearm, chances are your check is signed by the king.
Oh wow!
The third one, or the second one, sorry, is rich people. Shooting in Britain has always been a very rich sport because it can be quite expensive to get into, especially since over here, due to restrictions on firearms, things like pistols Semi-automatics bigger than a 22 rimfire cartridge, and anything above 50 cal aren't allowed. So things like ARs, AKs, even things you might think are relatively fine, like old World War II semi-automatic rifles, like an M1 carbine, wouldn't be allowed under British law. So what you mainly find here is bolt actions and shotguns. Shotguns are quite easy to get. You just need a shotgun certificate, which, as long as you have a safe, no history of severe mental health issues, and 2 people to testify that you are of sound mind, they just rubber stamp it and give it to you. However, there are restrictions. It can hold no more than 3 rounds, so that means you're mainly using things like double barrels, unless you apply for a Section 1 license, which covers rifles. Rifles are also a bit more complicated. They, like I said, they have to be either bolt action or pump action or single shot, unless they are under 22 and a rimfire. Which, if you don't know what rimfire means, it's an old way of setting off a cartridge. It's not really used anymore. We prefer centerfire, which is your traditional bullet. Now, because of that, like I was saying, you mainly find rich people who are into hunting, or people who are enthusiasts collecting replicas or mock-ups of like real firearms. I am one of those people. Alternate firearms.
Wow. Okay.
I'm just reading what Look at the Trees wrote there. In the UK, that would be very illegal. So
Let's see what it says. It says he lives in the woods, far away from the police, but very near meth dealers, and is well trained from the army service. Police will not make it to him in time during emergency, so he is capable of neutralizing. Oh, okay, that's cool.
So, this actually, I have a bit of a prop, if I may.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, sure.
So, if anyone doesn't know, so fair warning, this is fake and a replica. Now,
Okay,
this will not
yes.
be due
Fair
to
warning.
due to laws in America regarding barrel length. This will not be exactly what, but what Trees is talking about there is this. It will be an AR-15 model.
Gotcha.
The M4 is a military designation for it, and I'd be very surprised if it was a genuine military M4, because those are like gold dust, and you need to have a special license to have one. However, in America anyway. However, they are surprisingly good for a lot of things, including like hunting pigs, which are non-native in America and very invasive. Pigs are biological weapons; they're horrifying.
Oh wow. Okay.
However,
Yeah, we have huge issues with boars here, like wild boar population.
and in the UK we do have, well, not so much anymore. But we used to have wild boars, and they are native here, so it's not that bad. But they could be quite bad, so we hunted them. We hunted wild boars to like near or complete extinction, and we used things called boar pikes, which were giant long pikes with guards that were about that wide, so the pig couldn't just ram its way up it, because they'd skewer themselves and then kill you. They were horrifying.
Wow.
Yeah, no, they're
wild.
hogs are terrifying. But in the UK, the real version of this, which this is again fake YouTube, this is illegal, completely.
Oh,
No.
okay. Yeah. So you don't.
Yeah.
So you okay?
So I couldn't own an AR-15.
Tree said that
So-
there are enough AR-15s in America for everyone to have 3 each.
So AR-15s are illegal in the UK.
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, they've been trying to
They-
ban them here for so long, but it's never gonna happen. People, like you
No.
said, there's so many that are on the streets.
Yeah,
so
I have a
it would
quick
be,
question though before, because before it goes away from my brain, you at the beginning when you were starting to talk between the difference and how people obtain guns, you said that you have to pass like a mental health check, like you don't have any past medical,
Yeah.
right? Or
You don't
something
have
like
any
that?
major mental health crises in your past, which is also a thing in a lot
Wow.
of US states too, which not a lot of people realize.
Well, then you said you have to have two people basically vouch
And also,
that you're
yeah,
stable as well. I mean, I
in
think
Yep.
that's
addition,
yeah, that's a great
I
thing. I
know, like,
mean,
people here, when you see like mass shootings, there's
Mm.
usually eventually they come out with like, oh, this person had this severe mental health stuff, and it's like
Mm.
a lot of it woke left want to make sure that they do have mental health checks before somebody's given a gun license, and everybody's like, no, 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 no. Like, well, obviously the ones that are for guns, ghosts. So it's good to know that other countries have that, and that it helps and that it works.
So I mass shootings are something that as most people do, hopefully. I'd be surprised if there wasn't, absolutely abhor. There has only ever been one major one in Scotland. It was a school shooting, and after that, that's what caused the really strict gun laws. However, I don't think that would work in the US. Reason being is that it was very different here. Again, like I said, there was very few people collecting guns, and they still weren't that common. So when it came time to turn over weapons, everyone just kind of, oh, fine. In the US, that likely wouldn't happen. And there is so many on the streets that it would just create a massive black market.
Yeah.
I think in America, a complete ban might have been possible in the 40s. Not anymore. I feel like instead America has to go down, for example, the Swiss route with safe integration of firearms into a society, which is possible. You mentioned in the intro that America has a unique relationship with firearms. They do, but not in the availability of them, more in the misuse of them. Switzerland is a country in which if you are a male and born there, you have to do national service. And if you do military national service, you, like in another country, serve in the military for a year. The unique thing about Switzerland is that you keep your service rifle. They use a gun called a SIG 550. It is very similar to an AR-15, at least in what it can do. So,
did we freeze? I'm sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt.
I just thought you were listening.
Yeah, I
Did,
think
did
we
we
were
freeze for a
frozen for
second?
a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the last thing you heard me say? I can just repeat myself.
Well, I was you were just talking about the AR-15. Like when you came back on, I kind of felt like you were still going back to the same thing. So maybe like the past, like it was only maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds.
Yeah, I think it was just a couple of seconds.
So
But
did you hear what I was saying about Switzerland?
No, I didn't hear that part.
No, I heard you say something about the Swiss, but
Yeah,
then
then
not
it
the
cut
full
off.
thing.
So-
But my parents live in Switzerland, so I'm familiar with their gun laws. But go ahead, so that our listeners can.
So in Switzerland, you have mandatory service. If you're a male born there, you have to do a year in the military. You can opt for a civil route instead, but that's not the bit I want to focus on. In Switzerland, if you do your military service, you keep your service rifle. They use a SIG 550, which is in effect, if you're not going into like technical details and stuff, it's very similar to an AR-15. Now, mechanisms and stuff are different. However, it is a fully automatic, genuine assault rifle. And almost every house in Switzerland has one. And yet we don't hear about Swiss mass shootings. So I was curious when I first heard about this. Because I was thinking, of course, how? So I started to look into it, and I realized one of the reasons is that because everyone was in the military, they are trained, at least very basically, on gun safety. There is a noticeable whenever you start to learn about guns, there's a noticeable drop. There's a noticeable increase on how much you pay attention to things like tactics. The more you know about firearms, the more you realizing doing something like a mass shooting is suicide. And although death is generally not a good dissuasion from punishments, it can be a very good. Well, if I'm going to do something, especially, say for example, political assassination, as was in Japan a few years ago, it very much becomes a. Oh, they have quite big guns. I can't do that. And at least part in knowledge helps you understand that no, really, that big soldier over there with the gun is really not to be fucked with. However, another part of it is that they have very good national security, both internal and external. Internally, they have a quite decent a quite decent police force, and they also have good social care. So
Yeah,
part of what I say,
one thing I wanted to point out is that Look at the Tree said that a lot of Americans have undiagnosed mental health issues, and
Mhm,
that's another thing that Switzerland also has going for them, that they have really good medical care
yeah,
and
and it's
both
affordable for
physical
Switzerland.
and mental health
Yeah,
care. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Something else that Look at the Tree said about universal healthcare is I think if you put the comment up, I think it's very important that if we had universal healthcare, I think it would possibly reduce mass shooting events. I agree.
Oh,
I have 4 pillars that I think would be necessary to integrate firearms successfully into society. That is one of them. Because a lot of shootings, or a lot of mass casualty events in general, are because of things like undiagnosed mental health events,
Yeah.
or they are motivated, as we've seen with the Mangione case, by
mhm.
but like targeting a specific group. Having good healthcare and good like a good social safety net for people that fall through the cracks, so that they don't slip into poverty and end up perhaps in gang crime or committing things like muggings, is a very good way to reduce other weapons crimes other than just things like mass shootings. As for mass shootings themselves,
Are
there
you
will
a
always
socialist, EJ? How dare you be a socialist?
I actually no. I, I get accused of it a lot, but no, I'm a capitalist. I just believe in modifying capitalism because, believe it or not, it's easier to modify the system you have in place than put a new one in. But
Yeah,
no,
no,
apparently
no.
some people don't
I'm
realize
just messing with you because I think people hear oh, universal healthcare, and they're like, oh my god, you're a socialist, a communist, and blah blah blah.
that.
And it's like, no, listen, look at countries like we say Switzerland, Sweden, Denmark, all of the even the UK, like they have good overall social systems,
Mm,
and this increases the people's living standards. Like
yeah.
you have less mental health issues, you have less homeless people, less food insecurities, all
Mm,
of that, more education. Everybody gets a fair try at education.
mm,
So it's like when you take care of your country, it thrives. But when
mm,
you do things like what they're doing here, trying to take away healthcare, trying to like, oh, don't feed lunch to like school children because how dare they eat,
mm,
and like uh, no care for people who need to be on things like social help for other types of food, right? Like what we call food
mm,
stamps here. I don't know if you guys probably
yeah.
don't have it with the same name over there, but like where they give you a little bit of help so that you can feed your family. Like, listen, no, it's not about mooching from the system. It's about some people sometimes go through hard times and they need a little bit of help, and
Mm,
it's like, I don't mind helping people do that and accomplish a better society overall. And when we're talking about mass shootings, everything you said is exactly on point, and it's baffling to me that people from inside the United States cannot see it, but
mm.
everybody out there is already doing it and has already seen the benefits of it, and we are
So,
here hard-headed, like refusing.
something I really like to point out to people is that you may differ in how you see solutions to the problem of gun violence, but both sides on this, whether it be pro gun or anti gun, are not differing on the goal. Everyone wants mass shootings to disappear.
Yeah.
Because one, we like people, call it crazy, people are best not shot. And two, misusing any tool and getting it absolutely really heavily regulated is a good way to ensure that people who may need one can't get it. Uh, a good example would be the uh, knives in the UK. So I was trying to think of the word. In the UK, knives are very heavily regulated, and that doesn't stop stabbings because they are a tool everyone has. Except if I want to, let's say I break one in the kitchen, which happens more often than you'd think, because yeah, we don't have really good sturdy knives here because companies don't want to make really good ones because they keep being used in crimes. So anything I can afford is not that good, so they keep breaking. If I go down to the shop to buy a kitchen knife, I have to pick up a bit of cardboard, I have to go to the till, I have to hand over ID, I have to then take the knife, wrap it in a bag, make sure no one sees it, and take it home.
Wow.
Wow, that's very strict for a knife. That's
I had
wild.
no idea about that.
Yeah, and for example, do you guys have pocket knives?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're
Wonderful.
sold like pretty much everywhere.
I would guarantee you any pocket knife either of you two have in your general vicinity would be a 5-year sentence in the UK if you were to take it out in public.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
we
crazy.
can only we can only have a 3 inch blade length, and it can't be locking, so it couldn't be used in a stabbing. And they're
Oh,
very
okay. Yeah, the ones we
very
have are
ineffective.
small, but you
Mm,
can find like the larger ones pretty much anywhere. Like the little ones are
mm.
sold at like uh
Gas
gift
stations and stuff.
shops, pretty
Yeah, you
much.
can pretty
Yeah,
much buy them
yeah,
at, yeah.
yeah.
We have like dollar stores that sell them. I mean, I'm sure it's a lot of so many imported from China probably, but yeah, I mean, pocket knives are like there's
Yeah,
probably like millions of them. But we do
like,
have carry laws here. Like you can't carry a blade that's over a certain length. I don't remember the
Mm,
exact length.
yeah.
And you do have to if it is a certain size, and you would have to have a what you call I guess a holster to be able to carry it
mm,
on your side. Um, so there are some laws in
yeah.
regards to them, but it's not as strict in terms of like purchasing a knife. I mean, you could go to
Mm.
any store and buy a knife, like no issue.
So
Yeah, I wanted to say something real quick. For a moment ago, you mentioned that everybody's goal on both sides is to stop mass shootings,
mm,
and I think that was a really, really good point to bring up because whenever the woke left starts talking about gun control, people immediately go into like, "You want to take away my guns," and I want to make a big, big difference. Like differentiates between those two things. Nobody, like even the left, nobody wants to take guns away. I don't want guns to go away. I
mm,
want mass shootings to go away. And I think that
yeah.
there isn't a one size fixes all
Well,
solution.
they always
It's gonna be
argue.
like so many different things. Yeah. What's that?
they
What do
they
you say?
always they always make the argument saying it's not the gun that kills, it's the person. So then
Right.
maybe that is true. It's a mental issue. So if we focus more on
Mm.
stabilizing the mental states of people that are in crisis or need assistance, then people wouldn't be using the gun to shoot people. I mean, I don't
Right,
So
know.
but how did you do that? With less racism, with less homophobia, transphobia, with
Yeah, yeah.
supporting public education, with supporting higher education, with supporting universal healthcare.
Education's key for sure, because you have to
Yeah,
mm,
educate people on things, everything you just mentioned. If education is key to make people understand things that may not, it may not be a lifestyle that they live, but they need to be
if
compassionate towards other people's choices.
if I may, if Americans had good yes. So I was just about to make this point.
mhm.
So living conditions are very important. However, also what you said about education, that's true. There's at the range I go to, there's a semi joke but mostly true statement that we generally say. A trained shooter is a danger to a target. A moron with a gun is a danger to everyone. Like weapons, you can have. It is 100, at least in a small community. I wouldn't say a nation, right? But in a small community, you can have any weapon you want, and as long as you have training, there wouldn't be an accident or a negligent discharge. Like anything that would be done would be intentional.
Mhm.
And yet, in America, one of the most horrible things we see is things like children getting their hands on guns.
Oh
I
yeah, yeah.
So I was taught when I was young how to use a gun safely because my friends are military, my family, like I grew up in this little pocket surrounded by a bunch of big guys with guns. So it was normal to me as a kid. But a lot of people who I have taught how to shoot or I've like given instruction to, they seem so clueless. Like there's 4 rules that go with firearms. Keep the muzzle pointed down range, keep the safety on until you're ready to fire, keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to fire, and know your target and what's beyond it. Bar the last one, those 3 are always enforced wherever you go. And those 3 are ingrained in every shooter's head. And it's something that it's a personal fault of mine that I constantly think that, yeah, it's obvious, don't point it at someone. And then I constantly forget people don't know that. And it's the more I see it, the more I say, like, people have to be educated. Because the same way you wouldn't jokingly veer a car off the road as if to hit someone on the... Okay, well, I know someone that would do that, but he's an asshole. The same way most people wouldn't jokingly veer a car off the road, you shouldn't, because they've been taught how cars work, how to operate them correctly. We should have that. If you have a nation with firearms, you should have that kind of education, whether or not it's a requirement to get a firearm or it's just like a class in school. It's depending on your area, it would change. For example, if you live in a rural area, you might as well have it in school, because even like if you go to a rural area, even here, everyone and their mum owns a gun.
So it's pretty crazy. Like I've heard, I've never experienced this, but I've heard stories, like at least here in Texas, like from some of my elder family members that, I mean, they used to allow kids to drive to school, with their rifle mounted in the back of their car in high school. Kids would have a rifle class in school as well, where they would teach the kids how to properly fire the rifle. And I mean, at least here in Texas, I mean, that was something that you would see, a gun mounted in the back of of a high school kid's truck, while he's at school. But now we have, guns are completely like banned from being within certain distances of high schools, because we have
Yeah.
the mass shooting. So what has changed between those time periods where we used to be able to allow kids to go to school with their rifles and they weren't shooting anybody, and now we've completely blocked that, and we have kids getting doing mass shootings? Is it
If
an
I may?
education thing? Yeah, go for it.
You've just hit on an amazing point. A part of the socioeconomic reasons that mass shootings happen, because there was a very big change in communities that would, just have a gun sitting in the back of the car from then and now. A lot of those communities are now losing a lot of money. Like, jobs aren't paying as good as they used to. The money doesn't have the same spending power. People are having to pay more for less. People are not being able to afford what they can. And because of that, we are starting to see a lot more shootings and such. Because it's not... I like to say that any weapon is... It's a brick of metal, wood, and plastic. It will sit there, and if you do not touch it, it won't go off. Unless it's a Sten gun. God, I don't know why anyone carried those. But they are just tools that could sit in a safe for eternity. We need to allow people to be in a safe state, both physically and mentally, to be able to use those tools. You don't give a saw to a guy who is, talking about hacking people's limbs off, or an axe to someone who's talking about hacking people's limbs off. We should do that with firearms as well. I know, controversial, but if we can, make sure someone is okay to wield a weapon, then they probably shouldn't be wielding a weapon. Even if it's just, hey, I used to be on antidepressants, give me a psych evaluation and I'll prove that I'm safe to own a firearm. Because I have friends on the East Coast of America who want to own weapons but can't, because they voluntarily admitted themselves for depression and BPD. Like, it's it's
Yeah.
wild that some protections that make sense can be so half-assed and not thought through. Like, I understand where it's coming from, however, it needs more thought. America is a massive place. There are 300 million people. Even if it's just a state law, there's still tens of millions of people there. You still have to think about how these laws are going to be enacted in the future, how science and medicine is going to progress. And we can't have, like you said, a one-size-fits-all solution.
Yeah.
We need to instead have something that's adjustable to the time. So also, if I
Yeah.
may, someone just said, someone was just talking about what about an armed society as a polite society? Not true. That's like, as crazy as some people, or as much as some people say it, that's not true. An armed society is a cocky society. In Scotland, if you ever visit, you'll see that a lot of people are very, very nice and very talkative. Reason that is not because we're an armed society, but because Scotland has a massive history of fighting. Like, in Scotland, you're generally one sentence away from getting punched in the face. And everyone's kind of aware what they say has consequences. When you have a human deleter on your hip, you generally think the consequences don't apply to you. They do.
Right.
People need to learn that you are a target for all sorts of bad things if you act like a dick. A polite
That's
society
very
is a
true.
courteous and educated one, not an armed one. An armed society is a relatively safe society, but if it has a Titan Uranus just said, if I have Scottish friends, I can confirm that. Yeah, if they're from Glasgow, tell them I said hello.
That's funny.
We uh, an armed an armed society is not a polite society. An armed society has to be trained, has to be well fed, has to be well looked after. An armed society requires a lot of maintenance, and if America can't put in that maintenance, they don't get the benefit that firearms should.
I love that. I
Bestow.
love the way you just put that. Okay, I'm gonna be using that for sure. That's really well put, EJ. That's why I wanted to have you here. Okay, you
Thank
have
you.
a way with words
Thank you. I'm
and
sorry.
like putting like making sense of things. It's like we've been trying to tell people, listen, like no, you don't need more guns. It's about taking care of your people. When you take care of your people,
Yeah.
the guns are not going to be that much necessary. Like the people that have them for safety, yeah, sure, they will still have their guns, but they won't be something that they feel is absolutely necessary,
Hmm.
because you will feel safer. You will feel safer around the people that surround you. Like somebody earlier was talking about, I have a gun because I'm afraid of my neighbors. Like that's not,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's not how you keep a polite society.
No. Fear breeds hate, which breeds anger. Yes, that was a quote from Yoda, but still, he was right.
That's a
Uh,
good one.
Yoda. Yeah, but I think the US has this very unique view of guns, and a lot of it, especially from the right wing
hmm,
conservatives, it has to do with the fact that in the U.S. Constitution, in the Second Amendment, it says that citizens have the right to bear arms,
yeah.
and which is one of the biggest hurdles that we have when it comes to any kind of legislation, um, because they start throwing it around and screaming that oh my god, you're gonna violate my constitutional rights and you're gonna take away my guns. And we talked about earlier how Switzerland has different types of gun
Hmm.
laws. And you know you mentioned earlier that is that very similar in the UK to how it is in Switzerland, the way that you say, okay, you gave us like the different types of rules that you have, but do you see
Hmm.
that a lot of people have guns, or people just are not that
So
much interested in it?
there are quite a few people that um There are a few people like in my local area that own guns, but generally not a lot of people do. There is a rather big criminal element though. The thing about criminals in Scotland is that if they have guns, they don't half-ass it. They have like 50 cals, like big machine guns. They in Scotland you either get pocket knife or cartel. There's no in between.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, which is another reason if you ever see British armed police, it's why they're armed to the teeth.
Because they know what they're going up against. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess if you're gonna break the rules, break it big. I mean,
Why you might as well.
Fun fact:
Y-
the law that governs firearms in the UK, generally it's just called a weapons charge. That also covers pepper spray and tasers. So you could theoretically get the same jail sentence for having a taser and pepper spray as you could a machine gun.
wow.
So you might as well go for the machine gun.
Interesting.
Yeah,
But
self-defense is
co-host.
not like a very cute co-host, adorable baby.
She keeps trying to get on my keyboard though. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I was gonna.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up the carry laws that we have here in Texas. I mean, so well, I think it was in 2021 is when we changed the law to where you don't have to take a safety course or a training course anymore to be able to openly carry a gun in public. Prior to that, you used to have to go through, pass a shooting test. You would have to complete so many hours of classroom training, and that was the only way to be able to publicly carry. But now you don't have to do any of that. You can basically, if you can legally purchase a gun, then you can carry a gun in public, and that it really brings some issues here where we live in the city. As I stated earlier, I run like a news website, so I report on a lot of the crime and different incidents that happen through the city. And it's really opened my eyes to how much gun violence we actually have. And also it puts a strain on our police, because there's so many calls that come in where people report seeing people walking with guns, and there's so much gun violence here in our city, that the police have to go check it out, because even if the person is legally open carrying, someone's going to call it in because they don't know if it's a mass shooter, if someone's start shooting people in the public, and then the police have to go stop them, verify that that they're legally allowed to to own the gun. But it's kind of like the Wild West here in Texas these days, in terms of like everyone carrying a gun.
So, if I may, about so you were touching on policing, and I think the US gets policing incredibly wrong. Not in what most people think. So, the UK has a bunch of different like branches of police. However, generally you can break it down into two categories: unarmed, armed. Now, armed cover things like military bases, sites of national importance like gas plants, nuclear reactors, energy facilities, stuff like that. Unarmed are your daily on the plod bobbies. Now, the armed police here are better equipped than our army, because the general thinking here is that if it requires more than a baton, taser, and pepper spray, why not go all out? Now, our armed police are also, to some extent, very well trained, not only in marksmanship, but also things like de-escalation. There was one case, I believe it was years ago now, where an armed unit took out a suicide bomber without killing him. As far as I'm aware, they either tased or just punched him in the jaw and grabbed the detonator.
Wow.
They do have a few very big fuck-ups under their belt, but not as many as the US police. And part of that, I feel, is that you are, in the UK, if you are doing if you're doing armed policing, you are essentially the British equivalent of SWAT. And because of that, you are held to a much higher standard. Body cams are obviously, or helmet cams in this case, are obviously almost always on, but also their conduct is also a lot more heavily scrutinized. So they do have some leeway, like if there's someone acting a dick on the street, they are more okay in a situation to shout, "Hey, fuck off," than a regular cop would be. But they are also, any action they take physically is heavily scrutinized, because when you're dealing with firearms, it's usually life or death, especially if like SCO-19, the counter-terrorist boys, get called out. And in America, while I do think, given the proclivity of firearms, it is a good idea for cops to be armed, I do think that they respond to unnecessary calls. For example, there was a case involving my friend, actually. They had left a psychiatric institution, and they weren't being violent. They were there for suicidal tendencies, and the obviously reported that they left, so the police went to go get them. Mistake 1A. It should have been EMS, in my opinion. Should have been paramedics. Police ordered her on her knees. She complied, and then dragged her to the car. Scrapes, bumps, stuff like that, unnecessary, and caused a massive distrust of the police, obviously. And because of that, because of 2 dickhead officers, she needed a bit of therapy, obviously needed time to heal, and has a massive distrust of a police force which should be protecting her. If it was an ambulance that had responded, she would have got a ride on a comfy bed back to the hospital. Like, it's a huge issue in America that the police are doing things that law enforcement shouldn't have to do. Their job is to enforce laws. If you want to have a different group to help with things like public safety, like we do in the UK, we have like volunteer officers called public safety officers that deal with like, they just walk around the day like, oh, you need help with like directions, oh, you've got a minor like cut or scrape, we'll deal with that. You've got a minor crime that you need to be reported, we can handle that. Well, the actual police deal with bigger issues. So yeah, US policing, so much wrong with it. I would love to fix.
Like
I wish I could be dictator of the USA. Like, I don't like dictators, but I wish I could. Just 4 years, a presidential term. Just give me. I'll fix it.
EJ for
You'll
20...
fix everything. Man.
we'll put you on the ballot next time.
Unfortunately, I'm not a US born citizen.
Damn it.
Hey, anything's possible.
but,
I mean,
yeah, at this point, we don't know what could be possible. I mean, Elon Musk might end up running or something. But yeah, let's stay on the topic of police for a second, because I that was actually one of the topics I wanted to bring up. Because police brutality in America is, like you just said, is a huge problem, and obviously we know that it's heavily fueled by racism. A lot of the troubles that we've seen, like the cases that we've seen of people being killed by the police, are generally people of color, and so a lot of them were not even breaking any laws. They were not causing any trouble. They were being stopped for like random things, like a traffic violation, or somebody that they thought was carrying a weapon, but it was a kind of soda. Like a lot of stereotyping of young black men, especially. So I'm usually shocked by the difference between the police in other countries and in the US. So Joe and I recently were watching this TV series by Harlan Coben, which is a British writer. And so all of the shows for that series are recorded in the UK. But we were really surprised by the fact that pretty much none of the bad guys, or even the good guys, the cops or the detectives, had guns. And it was like, they're usually like 8 episodes, and it was like towards one of the last episodes where somebody finally brought out a gun, and we were like, oh, okay, now it is. But it was like, wow, okay. So what you just said totally makes sense then. So you have the police who are not armed
Yeah.
with guns, and then you have the actual armed
Yeah, the
police.
armed unit.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
here, every cop has a gun, and they're, yeah. Even though they do have training, I feel like they don't
It's not
have.
enough.
Yeah, it's not enough. And so a little while back, I did a nonprofits episode on this very topic, and we were talking about the defund the police movement, which is something that's going on here.
Hmm.
But when people hear that, they go to an extreme and they think that, oh no, you're completely trying to get rid of all of the police. You're trying to defund all of the police. But the defund the police movement doesn't aim to fully defund the police. It is aimed to do something what you just said, where there are certain people who are better trained to deal with specific situations, right? Like if you have
Hmm.
somebody who's having a mental health um, emergency, like your friend, then sending the armed police is probably not the best idea. Like you want to
No.
send somebody like a counselor or somebody who knows how to de-escalate situation, or even
Hmm.
uh, emergency medical professionals. You don't want to send somebody with just a gun to point it at them and tell them, calm the fuck down, or I'm going to shoot you. Like, no, that's
Yeah.
not going to de escalate the situation. And so that does seem to happen a lot too over here. Like police being sent to welfare checks that could better be served by somebody with a lot more mental health training.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I'm glad, like again, like the vast difference between the two places and how it actually works over there, and the fact that here in America we cannot see past that kind of obsession to be like, hey, look, there's other steps that we could be taking to improve our relationship with the police, between the police and the civilians, because there is a massive distrust of the police,
Hmm.
which came with good reason. Okay, like I said, all of these cases of black young men or even black women, there were several cases of black women being killed. Like there was one who was a nurse, and they like went into her house and shot her in the middle of the night because they thought that somebody else
Yeah,
was there or something
there
like
was
that.
a no knock warrant they were
Brianna
serving. Yeah.
Brianna
Yeah,
Taylor. As
yeah,
far
Brianna
as I'm
Taylor.
aware, it was because her boyfriend next door had pulled a gun, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Which, by the
they were
way,
looking for him. Yeah.
yeah, by the way, as someone who has done a lot of shooting, right? It is. So, as far as I remember, she was hit with a rifle, which, again, fake, would have been something like this. In a room, do you know how easy it is to differentiate targets? I can, with a genuine firearm, I can hit like targets that have that much space between them, like very fucking easily. It is not a hard thing to do. So the fact that they were, even if they were cuddling, it is not hard if you have to engage to only one, fire a controlled burst, two, make sure you know where that, make sure you know where it's going, know your target and what's beyond it, and three, make buggering sure that the thing you are aiming at is actually the person with the gun. Because, there is a word for someone who is being held while someone else has a gun. It's called a fucking hostage. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's
the, the,
crazy.
the Taylor case, I fucking hated it.
It was
There was so much in it that, like,
horribly handled, horribly
yeah,
on all aspects, on
even
every aspect of it. Yeah,
even if they're going to serve a no knock, use flashbangs, use
Yeah.
distraction
Yeah.
devices. Do not, because in the time, even if, let's say, the house was identical to to the house I'm in, the door is about 2 meters that way. Like, you can see the door to the hallway, it's just down there. That's where the front door is. If I had a firearm on this table, it doesn't matter how long they take to take that door down, because by the time they run up the hallway, I am armed. You are now entering a room with an armed suspect. Use tools at your disposal. taxpayers paid for things like flashbangs. They're not going to be pissed if you fucking use them. And if you use it and it turns out he's not in there, oh well. I have been flashed. It sucks. It sucks a lot less than getting shot, though. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's crazy.
it kind of comes back to training. Like here in Texas in general, where we live in our city, Houston, there was a similar case. Well, not similar, but it was a case involving a no-knock warrant, where officers had a warrant to arrest someone from a home, and it turns out they had the incorrect address. So they did the no-knock raid, and it was two people, a female and a male in the house. And when they busted down the door, he grabbed his gun and started shooting at the police because he thought someone was doing a kick-in. And then they opened fire on him. And I mean, they shot the house up like crazy and like killed both of the occupants. And that's just crazy.
I heard about that, and there has been, this is not a new phenomena. There have been very high profile cases of the government and police fucking up. A good example off the top of my head would be Ruby Ridge. I believe it was 2 federal agents died in that, but weren't charged for murder because, well, I'm not going into that because I imagine we have limited time. But but like no-knock warrants, in some cases, I understand. If you have a situation in which there might be evidence which could be destroyed if you knock, I understand. If you're arresting someone for something like assault, the worst they're going to do is dive out the window. Put the 2 rookies at the rear of the fucking house. It's not, like, especially for a house, a 4-man stack is fine. And if you have 6 people, just put 2 on the back door. Like, it's...
And make sure all your paperwork's right. And make sure you got... I mean, it's just wild to think.
Yeah, but I mean, there over here, like the training thing is a big problem. Christopher Tablante in the chat mentioned there was a case where a cop told an old black woman that he was going to shoot her in the face, and she was cooking. So this is the case of Sonia Massey. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it. It was pretty recently. So she called the police, and they come to her house, and they start talking to her, and they were like in a living room / kitchen. And so she walks to the kitchen, and the cops are still there talking to her, and she's standing by the stove and talking like she actually tells them about the boiling water that she had on the stove. And the cop is like, I'm gonna shoot you in the face if you don't blah blah blah. And she's trying to just move the pot away from the fire so it doesn't start burning. And they shot her, straight up shot her and killed her. And they were like at least a good 10 feet away from each other. It's not like she was gonna throw the water at them or anything. It did not look at all threatening. She was like I don't know, 60 or 70-year-old lady.
That's
just
standing
bad.
there.
Wow. I didn't hear about that.
There was a case recently as well where 2 police officers were searching a house, and this new officer, she was clearing the house. She rounded the corner, she had her weapon drawn, saw a mirror, and opened fired into the mirror. 1, you didn't identify that target. 2, they were in full dress uniform, full cop
why
blues.
did you fire? Yeah.
And 3, check your target, you moron, because if that was a person, you would have just shot a cop. Like, it's... I feel something that absolutely sucks about America is, and I've hinted at this before, is the half-assedness of solutions. Cops need better training. Cool, base it off the military. But don't actually do any of the important stuff. Like target identification, PID on weapons, stuff like that. Don't teach that. That's fine. Or with weapons, okay, if you've ever been severely mentally ill, you can't own a gun. What about people who have since recovered? Fuck them. What? Or vehicle laws, even like with motorbikes. Texas and California are the only two states that you can lane split in the entire state, or you can filter in traffic. It saves lives and it reduces traffic. Texas and California never agree on anything, and the rest of the country still hasn't taken the fucking hint. Like, America half-asses everything, and it is getting people killed.
Oh yeah, for sure. I can completely agree that on so many different things, man. It's just we're just we like to
Hmm.
pretend that we are at the top of the world, but like our laws and legislations are taking us to like third world level very
And
quickly.
I will say this: America might not be the greatest country in the world, but it has potential to be.
It
It has the
does.
potential to blow the world away, and it fucking doesn't.
Yeah, it does. So that's one thing that a lot of people ask me when when I mention when I'm like, well, I'm going to a protest or I don't like this one, I don't like that one. Well, why don't you go back to where you came from? I'm like, no, I came to the U.S. about 25 years ago with my family as a kid, and my mom brought us here in right after the attacks of 9/11.
Hmm.
They literally happened like the day after we found out we were gonna leave. But that's another story. Anyways, so but she brought us here with the hope that we will have a better life, because the life that we had in Argentina, the type of government, the poverty, the lack of education, the lack of healthcare, those were things that she saw we could potentially have over here. And when we first moved here, we were able to get a lot of those things, and but slowly they moved down a path where we are not able to get those freedoms that we came here for. And I don't want to leave, because I do see the potential. Like you said, we have the potential to do that, and we have so many people that want those things, and
Hmm.
that want America to actually improve. Not this whole make America great again. It was never that great, okay? But
I
it
don't think
can
we
be
should make
better.
America
I know. I
great.
was gonna ask, has America ever been great? No.
I
Why?
was going to say we shouldn't make America great again. We should make America what it was born to be.
There we go. I like that.
Yeah, that is a good slogan. Okay, you're running for president, EJ. I don't care. We'll make a rule, like we'll override the. I'm sure that Elon Musk is gonna work hard for it, because I have a
Oh,
feeling that he's
definitely.
trying to like run or something.
Oh, definitely. His ass is 100% running for president. Going to try to run for president. And you know what? I'd be surprised if they didn't. You know, if they didn't change the laws for him, because he's rich.
I was having a conversation with one of my family members about that. If Trump did change the rules and ran for a third term, then we'll go ahead and have Obama run against him. So because then he'll be able to run for a third term. So that would be an interesting
Yeah.
battle, Obama against Trump.
With all due respect, if Trump tries to run for a third term, I feel like someone's just going to do what happened to him before again
Oh,
with much
yeah,
more success.
that's very
I,
true as
I
well.
don't know if I can say that openly, but you know what I mean.
I'm with you.
I'm honestly surprised it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
Well, he's only half a year into his term, so
True.
I
Yeah.
would just I really just hope that he doesn't get the midterms and then he's just a lame duck sitting president after that. Sorry, I just want to throw that in there.
Oh yeah. So before we move on to another topic, I want to know how exactly did you? Well, you said that you grew up around guns, right? Is that why you were so interested in the topic?
Hmm.
Like because of your family?
Yeah. Part of it is also autism. I'm autistic, and they became my special interest when I was a kid, and it's
Nice.
not shifted since. And it's really annoying because all my other friends have special interests like math or trains or logistics, and I get one that I can't use in this fucking country.
Oh,
If I had this, like if I was born in the US, I would have been set. Like,
yeah. I think
I would have had a
you'd
business
be
plan.
happy about that here.
Yes, very much so.
It's funny.
You'll get a picture from me saying, "I got one." Uh,
What
You're
state are
finally.
you moving to when you come to the US? If you don't mind,
I'll
you don't
be
have to say.
eventually in South Carolina.
South Carolina. Okay, never been there. I've heard it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It
it's
looks beautiful
very
from what I've seen.
Republican conservative, but it is beautiful.
That's all right. I'll just bring some Glasgow love to. No, I won't do that because that'll end in assault. Uh, we don't take nicely to things like gay bashing and neo-Nazis in Scotland. Yeah, no, I'd be brought up on charges if I tried to act the way we act in Glasgow in America.
Yeah, you probably should like settle down a little bit. It's like
We'll
fit in, blend in with the magas.
we'll do the next call from my jail cell.
It's funny. Yeah, man, that's funny. So let's talk about. I know you told me that you wanted to talk about the current situation in the world. All right, like the current environment that we have with wars. There are two wars currently going on in the Ukraine and in Palestine, and Joe likes to talk about this topic too. All right.
So, straight out of the gate, Ukraine will win. There is no doubt about it. Russia's logistics are, for one, terrible, and they do not have the equipment to keep up a sustained conflict.
They have so much outdated equipment that's a huge factor for them as well. And they just lost 30% of their strategic bombers, so which was like an insane hit from Ukraine.
I saw that raid. I was jumping. I was like, fuck yeah! The UK is also going back and forward on sending troops into Ukraine. I hope we do. We have a bunch of battle-hardened vets with nothing to do that are itching for a fight. Let them at them. As for the other one, I am very much on the side of the civilians.
Yeah.
I hate Hamas as a terrorist group, and I don't fucking like that Israel is making them the good guys. You are a trained military. You should, one, not be firing on hospitals because, right.
And they have the full support of the United States too. So it's like,
which bothers me so much for multiple reasons. One, it is an absolute abuse of life, and two, the US, at least if you're some cold-hearted bastard that does not care about human life, and you could just see everyone murdered and not matter to you, the US has done strategically better than what Israel is doing. Take the opening salvo in Iraq, for example. That is hailed today as one of the most well-planned military operations in history because of how effective it was. Israel, what their stated goal is counterinsurgency. One, you need a lot of propaganda for counterinsurgency because you need to win the civilian population over so that they don't shelter your targets. So that your targets have to find a place nice out in the open and you can just go and deal with them. If they are sheltered in buildings that have civilians in them, you don't use explosives. You go with a strike team. Call me crazy. We've known this for years. It's how we got Bin Laden. It's how not even Bin Laden. It's how we got Germans in World War II. The SAS was founded on the principle that, okay, our bombers won't work well in this situation. Send a bunch of nut jobs into the desert with some supplies and see what they can do to the Luftwaffe.
not a good idea. Yeah.
We have known how to fight insurgents for nearly 100 years. We know a lot of what doesn't work. We know what works. And we know that bombing civilians is not how you do it.
Yeah,
That's how you ally all the civilians against you, which is not something you want.
You're forming more enemies when you do that. You're turning the population against you. Yeah.
Yeah. You kill one person, sons, brothers, fathers, uncles, cousins, nephews are all immediately going, okay, cool, we'll take up arms against you. Ta-da! 1 death. You've now got 10 insurgents. Morons.
Yeah. It's a hard thing to try to figure out a solution to, but I agree that, bombing the way that Israel has bombed, hospitals, schools, and they're basically just destroying. They're basically
Mhm.
blowing everything up. They're trying to just basically wipe out,
Yeah.
the whole area, without any type of consideration for civilians, or life at that.
And the sad part
Hmm.
is that the when you try to point that out in the US, you're seen as being anti-Semitic
Yeah.
because you're like, oh no, oh my God, how can you be against Israel? Like immediately, as soon as you're like, well, they shouldn't kill the children. Oh no, 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 you're against Israel because they're Jewish. But it all goes back to like these very religious wars, and unfortunately, the Bible teaches that in order to wipe out a an enemy, you have to wipe out everybody, including their
Which,
children. There are so many Bible verses where this is clarified that you are meant to kill everybody, including the woman, the children, everybody, the animals, everything that may support the population, so that you can completely wipe everything out. And I think that that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to completely wipe out all the Palestinian people. I've seen some videos of people talking and saying, well, like if you kill their children, then they're not gonna have any more children. And yeah, like that's it's a
yeah,
horrible thing
genocide
to
wipes out
hear,
Right. It's
populations.
yeah, it is genocide. Yeah,
but it is
basically.
but it is justifiable from the point of view of theism, because you see it justified all the time in biblical scriptures. So
Hmm.
yeah, like they're still using those type of arguments to make up for, well, Jewish people are the chosen ones,
Hmm.
and so they must be defended at all costs, even if it costs children's lives.
Yeah, there really
Also,
is. Oh, no, go ahead.
uh, about the whole war in the first place, about how it was about the hostage situation, I can tell you right now from talking with people who have done hostage rescue operations for the army, they were looking at the area and going, yeah, there's a lot of hostages, but it wouldn't be impossible to just rescue them. Like, even Israel doesn't have a lot of history of doing that, right? So it's understandable that they might not feel confident on doing what would essentially be the hardest hostage rescue in history. Do you know who does? America and Britain. See, at the start of the conflict, see if they just said, hey, Delta, SEAL Team, SAS, SBS, SRR, could all of you come together and maybe work out a plan of how to get these hostages back? They would have jumped on the fucking chance. And not to mention, they have a history of killing people you don't like. So if you're worried about, Hamas being left alive, it's not like the US to be entirely open when it comes to war crimes of that nature. So they shouldn't even worry about that. Unless their stated goal isn't actually their real goal. It's almost like it's a conquering genocide is what they're trying to do.
Oh yeah, they were just waiting for some type of an attack like
Yeah.
that to occur, so they could jump on the chance to basically decimate, the
Yeah.
Palestinian territory.
It's like it's like in World War II, the excuse for invading Poland was that they said that the Polish attacked a radio station on the Polish-German border. Like, yeah, that justifies an invasion, doesn't it?
A radio station.
Yeah, which by the way they didn't do. It was a black flag op. The Germans did it and blamed the Polish.
Wow, okay, I did not know that little bit of history. Ha,
Yeah.
interesting. You think, when I think about all of these wars and like, all of the other Middle East wars that we've seen before in the past, and they are also religiously motivated behind why they happen. So do you think that being a non-believer or a humanist changes the way that people see war, guns, weapons, gun rights, gun responsibilities? Like, how are we different from believers on that sense?
I
You see a
I would
difference?
say it absolutely does make a difference. Because from my perspective, owning a gun isn't a God given right, it's a fucking tool that can cause mass casualty. Like a car or a plane, or even in some cases knives. Like I've worked security. I'm going to be working security in the US. Like this is guns aren't the only thing that can cause mass casualties. It might be a very important amendment, yes, but it's not some God given right that no one can take away. We got rid of the 18th Amendment, the prohibition on alcohol. We could get rid of the Second Amendment. It would be perfectly legal. Do I think they should do that? Fuck no. I think they should instead try to, integrate them into a society. But at this point, America is starting to act like a bunch of toddlers with their toys thrown out the pram. This is nearly
Well,
talking out
yeah,
of coming.
that is a really good way to put it for
Mm.
me. Yeah, and I have to agree. I think there's a big difference between when somebody is a humanist. We usually talk a lot about human well-being, so we don't want to cause harm. We don't want to be shooting people. But when I hear from people on the right, and they're all about guns and all about owning guns, well, where's my rights to own my guns? Don't take my constitutional rights away, and this and that. And it's not
Mm.
really even about protection when it comes to them. It's more like what you just say, like they think of it as a God given right. And unfortunately here in the US, a lot of people think that the Constitution and that the founding fathers were Christians, and that's why we're seeing this huge Christian nationalism rise to
Mm.
power. Um, you guys have that, like, this level of
Not really.
Christian nationalism over there? No.
Not really. We kind of started enough wars over Christianity and slaughtered enough people that everyone kind of just
Yeah.
went, well, fucking, well,
Yeah, like no more.
like,
Yeah, we don't need that.
we got it all out of our system after a couple thousand years of fighting.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that finally
Not,
saw the light.
it's not a thing. It's not a thing of the past though. There was the Troubles, which ended in the 90s. The Irish Civil War. It was a bloody. Still affects Scotland even. Which, so we're not entirely over it, but most people, as a whole, just tend to leave religion out of politics. Fucking wanker.
I'm hoping that it 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 ends up leaving such a bad taste in people's mouths that they will get over it and stop, like, completely oppose it. Again, I do see some Christians who are very much against Christian nationalism. There's this representative we have here in Texas that he's a Democrat, but he is a Christian, and he's been really outspoken about going against the Ten Commandment bills that are trying where they're trying to put the Ten Commandments on the walls of our classrooms, public school classrooms. I don't know if you've seen about that. I'm sorry, you've seen
I have.
the news.
Yeah.
and so I like when I see Christians
sorry.
speaking up against that type of stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to completely. That's the question I was just looking
I knew
at.
it.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
wondering, what does
Go
he
on.
mean when he says kept? Because my mind immediately goes to like a bug out bag or like a weapons platform.
I think he's talking about like your weapon setup, like a.
Yeah,
That's
like
what I understood.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mainly do long range shooting. So what I like is Accuracy International L115A3 clone. However, if you mean more conventional like AR style, it would probably again fake be something. For when I want to work security. Glock 17 with an RMR, light on the bottom, MP5K in the jacket, and either a PPK or an LCP on my ankle. I was actually talking about my boss with that. I was actually talking about that with my boss today. So,
Yeah, I
Um,
was gonna say they're probably gonna provide you with all the goods. You're gonna have
oh,
fun.
it's they were talking like, yeah, we can go to a showroom or two and take a look and see what you like. And I was sitting there on the phone going, oh, that'll be nice. Inside, I was going, fuck you, fuck.
Yeah, you're gonna be like a kid in a toy store, man. It's gonna be like,
Yeah,
Oh yeah, because here when you go to gun shows, there are huge. I'm sure you've. It's
oh,
like
I've seen
nothing
them.
you've ever seen before, as our president will say.
yeah.
I a very expensive rifle, but it was made with English size. Yeah. Sorry for I was just reading the thing.
Oh no, you're good.
Correct. The Accuracy International. So what he's talking about is an old story with the British sniper rifle. Um, so the British use a system called the L-115, and how it started was a couple of guys made guns for Olympic shooters.
Oh,
One
oh
of the
yeah, I
shooters,
forgot to have that.
yeah, one of the one of the guys is ex-army and goes, "You should British have a contract coming up for a new sniper rifle to get rid of the old Enfield. You guys should make a gun for it." So like, okay, might as well. And they made a gun that outperformed everyone by a mile. So they were like, okay, cool. And the British government then said, right, we have to come and inspect your facilities to see that you can supply the British Army with the necessary amount of sniper rifles. So they shit themselves, rented out like a studio thing, and showed the rifle in different parts of like configuration, and said, "Yeah, our staff are out to lunch, or sorry, our staff are having a day off today. Wanted to show you. Let's get you lunch." And bullshitted their way into a contract with the British government.
Oh wow.
It worked. They're still using a variant on the rifle, and even governments like Danish are using it. They're thinking about British Army's thinking about replacing it because it's a heavy fucking rifle. But no, it's very fun to shoot. It's chambered 330 Lapo Magnum, which the longest shot I've ever hit was over 2 kilometers.
That's cool.
An American equivalent of a Sten gun, it's called a grease gun. However, if you want one you can make in your garage, it would probably be like the FTC 9 or FGC 9. 9 ammo. When? Well, since when is 9mm cheap?
Over here,
Is it
maybe.
fight-
Yeah, ammo's
I was
pretty
gonna say,
cheap
has-
here in the States.
I was going to say, has 9mm finally gone down? Because during the pandemic, it was fucking sky high.
It's
Oh, was
everywhere now.
it?
There's no
Mhm.
shortages of ammo here again. Everybody was hoarding it for a while, but now you
Oh
can go
yeah.
to pretty much
Mm.
any sports store and they have shelves and shelves full of it.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think that
perfect.
probably definitely affected the prices. Yeah.
Oh, wunderbar, wunderbar.
Okay, so we're gonna start wrapping this up because we also have movie plans. We're gonna go watch Dogma. Have you seen that movie, Dogma?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you have to. It's really good. It's
I don't know if it's out in the
It's
UK.
it's an older movie. Yeah.
yeah. It's kind of like
Oh,
a parody of religion,
okay.
but it's really it's a comedy sort of, and God is a woman, and it's really good. I won't spoil it for you. But if you
I'm
get
gonna watch that
if
tonight
you
then.
get to see it, yeah, it's a really good movie. So like they've upgraded the graphics and then putting it out at the theaters. So we're gonna go watch it at the movies, even though it is an older movie. It's like it'll be fun.
Ooh, well, that sounds lovely.
Yeah. So let's see. I'm gonna put up real quick like our upcoming shows so that I can share with people what we have coming up. And all right, let's see. So firstly, next Thursday, actually, if I am not mistaken, we have Neurodivergent Rebel, and they are a non-binary, gender diverse human being, very very cool person who is also autistic, and they talk about that topic a lot on their channel. But recently, they've kind of swapped to talk more about the fascism and all of the bad things going on in our country. So it will be a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, I'm looking
Uh,
forward to that. I've been following them on their
yeah,
Facebook
on
page.
on Facebook, like
Yeah,
they go really hard on Trump and Elon Musk. So it should
should
be
be
a really
interesting.
cool conversation. I'm excited for that one. Then next one on June 19th, we have Jeff and Jason. Jason has been on our show before. Jason Freer, very cool Canadian person. Both of them are Canadian, obviously. So BajaCon is a conference in Canada, like of atheists, kind of like coming together. Seth Andrews is going to be there, Forrest Valkai, Eric Givens. So
Oh,
we like old stuff. Yeah, she's amazing. I love her. I wish I could go, but it's in Canada, so we're kind of like,
love to meet Gutsick Gibbon someday.
yeah, she's so cool. And then June 28th, we have Richard Gilliver and Scott Dickey, who are fellow nonprofits. And at first, I invited Richard to talk about morality of being vegan, and Scott wanted to join in the conversation too. So he's going to join us as well. And that should be a very, very fun talk.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that
Um,
one.
yeah. So, EJ, do you have anything else to add that you would like to add before we end up?
Yes, I'd love to do this again because I got a small fraction of what I was trying to say out, and I don't think
Oh,
very
yeah,
well.
we'll do it. We'll
Yeah,
schedule you for another
when
one.
you get settled in for sure. We'd love to have you back on.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, we'll do another one like around the same time where we don't have anything planned for the rest of the day, and we will just like talk
We can
until we
go on for
finish.
6 hours if needed. I mean, yeah, but we've had some fairly long shows where we don't even realize like we've been on that long.
Yeah, the one we had Richard Gilliver on here before, and it was with Secular Rarity as well, both of them together, and they both can talk. Okay, let me tell you, they can talk. I think we went almost 4 hours of the show. That
If
was the longest one we had.
if you put me on with someone like Richard Gilliver, it's going on for like 4+ hours. I talk. As you have seen, I talk too much.
Oh no, I enjoyed it. I
That's
enjoyed
not
it.
a
I
bad
love
thing.
the
No, it's great.
conversation.
Yeah, for
Really
sure.
good. Yeah. And so I want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. I see Christopher, Rochester, Fern has been here the whole time. Let me see who else. Look at the trees was on earlier. Burns as well. So shout out to everybody that supports us and that follows the channel. It's always fun to chat with people. So let me see. How can I end this show? I would just say that it doesn't matter if you are for guns or for regulation or just for human sanity. Just try to remember that belief doesn't really make you right. Okay, so evidence does, and we have plenty of evidence for all of the stuff that we discussed over here earlier. And I would like to. Oh, Fern told me to end it with a song. I don't know if I can do that. Like I've heard people um, getting blocked for that, but I could say, I hope you had the time of your life, because I know Green Day doesn't ban people
They won't
for
flag you
their songs.
for
Yeah,
that.
Always
right.
on the
Yeah,
bright side of life. Good song, Fern.
I love that song. Yeah, I love that song. So yeah, I hope you had the time of your lives, guys. Stay skeptical, loud, keep talking, keep bringing it up. And if you must carry something, it better be reason. See you all next time. Don't forget to like, subscribe.
Take care. Take care.
Take care.